Welcome to Strong Conversations, hosted by Simpson Strongtime, where we bring partners, colleagues, innovators, and leaders together for insightful conversations. We dive into the subjects and issues that we all face, forging stronger connections and relationships along the way. In our Building the Brand series, we talk to leaders and entrepreneurs in the building industry about what it takes to start a venture or business and build it into a brand. We talk about taking a chance on yourself and the determination and resilience that it takes to stay the course. Our guests share with us what it means to be a heart-led leader and the importance of not just building the brand, but building a culture that your employees can thrive in. Success is in the details. That is what we learned in this episode of Building the Brand with Mike Wootten of Reno Hardware and Supply. Mike built Reno Hardware and Supply to be one of the most respected brands in the pro supply industry. One of his successes was to pay attention to the details and keep an eye on everything.
Welcome back to another episode of Strong Conversations, Building the Brand series. I am Sam Marcoux, and I am joined on this very special episode by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Mike Wootten. Mike, how are you?
Very, very good. Thank you for inviting me here.
Oh, thanks for being here. I have talked to a lot of folks in our industry. They could be engineers, they could be, contractors. But talking to you prior to this recording was one of the more fascinating conversations that I've had in a very long time. Tell everybody your background. How did you start and how did you finish?
Well, I started thinking years ago in my early 20s when I was trying to make the Olympic team in cycling, and I realized I didn't make it. What was I going to do for a career? So I was going to buy a bicycle shop because I thought it was really cool building high-tech quality bikes in the eras of the 1970s.
Okay.
Realized that Reno Pertusi, who was the founder of Reno Hardware, who married my mother, said, well, why don't you come into my business, learn it, because I have no one to leave it to. Leaving it to, at that age, I had a completely different concept of what that meant compared to him.
Yeah.
So he was a Southern Italian that his favorite person in life was Rocky Marciano.
Okay.
Or Graziano, the famous fighter. And in fact, multiple times he would talk about when he was in New York, how he would relish seeing a fight and so on. But so I came into the industry and I learned what apprenticing was.
So we're gonna talk a lot about this. This is a fascinating journey, and that's the start there. So you eventually became the owner of Reno Hardware. We're going to talk all about that. But you started again. You wanted to be on the U.S. Olympic cycling team,
Right?
Didn't quite work out. The original dream here,
Correct.
So you go into the quote unquote family business. You were employee number 4 of Reno Hardware. Is that correct?
Correct.
So only 3 before you. What year is this when this happened?
Well, it was 1973.
Okay. So 1973, you come in, you're employee number 4. What were you doing at Reno Hardware when you first started?
Well, at Reno Hardware, there was a gentleman by the name of Spencer, a bookkeeper by the name of Maribel, and Reno. So when I came in, I was learning the business bottom up. So I would drive with Spencer. We would go to the job sites, deliver the material, and he was much older, so I was the body that could lift the material out, put it in the job shed, and the level of learning, just seeing the size of projects. Back way then, West LA had massive amounts of apartment buildings being built. So I was amazed seeing the size of these locations being built and the amount of people on it all working together.
Right.
So then after we delivered, go to the vendors. So most of them were in LA, still picking up material. Then I would put it back on the shelves and then kind of wait around for the rest of the day. So we'd start at 7, maybe get there at 6:30, and then the day would end at 5 or 5:30, depending on if customers came in to pick up a little bit for material for the next day.
So you were basically cradle to grave. You were doing all things service. You're delivering product to the job sites, to the customers.
Correct.
You're going and picking up either the next day's shipment or replenishing inventory. Was it one location at that time?
One location in on the border of Glendale and Los Angeles. It was half of a building, and it was part of another building that was Dell's Welding. And so we would see contractors come in there, and I would learn what welding he was doing and how he was doing it. So fabrication could be done by Reno from his shop.
So prior to joining Reno, did you have any interest in the construction industry? Did you have any knowledge of the construction industry other than knowing, okay, there's a hardware store that
No,
not at all.
not at all.
It was not on your purview or anything.
No.
Okay. So it kind of goes to my theory. I was kind of the same way when I started. I was 19 when I started in the industry, found the company that I work for, still work there to this day. I was like, this is a great company. And it turned out to be a great profession. And I just kind of fell into it and stayed. Sounds very similar to you. Obviously different career paths that we're going to get through here. So you're doing everything. You're delivering, you're picking up, you're restocking the shelves, you're servicing the customers as they walk into the account as well. What was Reno Hardware's tagline? What was the motto that Reno Hardware had?
In the very beginning, it was we were specifically had a product line that a framer needed.
Okay.
So our whole scale of product was very limited because back then there wasn't the engineering as there is today and all the different SKUs. So there would maybe be a product line of 15 items and maybe only 6 of them were constantly going out that day. We had all the machine bolts, anchor bolts, things that were needed to attach wood to the foundation, but very limited.
Yeah.
That was kind of the thing that when I went to the job sites and saw as I was delivering how much more maybe we had the opportunity to expand lines.
See, and I love that. That's the vision right there. When you go out, you're in the dirt, you're going to the job site and you're seeing, the vision becomes much wider of, oh man, there's so much opportunity out here to grow our business by way of their business there. So we were talking, Reno Hardware has nothing to do with Reno, Nevada.
Correct.
Right? It has to do with
the founder's name. The founder's name. Correct. First name was Reno.
Okay. So you put together a tagline that says, don't gamble on service.
Correct.
You're playing into the casinos in the Reno there. But that line of service, don't gamble on service.
Correct.
It seems to me, that's what set you guys apart from your competitors, maybe more than anything else. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
So what is it about what you guys did differently than everyone else in a pretty crowded space? Like you said, they're building everywhere. There's people out there. There's money to be made. What made you guys stand out in a very crowded crowd?
Well, I think if we're going from now that forward, the hours I worked as I started to go into sales more, as I learned more of this and met the customers, a lot of them you would deliver because they were afraid to leave merchandise on the job site so it wouldn't be stolen. As if, let's just go 1974, 1975, 1976. At that time, they were worried about theft.
Right.
I would deliver to their homes.
Oh, really?
After hours, certain product lines that they knew there might be taken to another job that would just kind of go not be there anymore. So they always wanted to take those products themselves to in the morning and so on. So then that's how I build up the rapport to learn how they think and how to improve how I need to think. And it was very important. And part of this logic of it is they are relaxing now. So they would maybe want to have a glass of scotch or something. And then they want you to drink with them. But I'm still have to get home, do this and do that. And I went, wow, this industry is kind of interesting how everyone kind of wants to have a cocktail, kind of the deal. And I came from an athletic background that maybe after you did a 100-mile bicycle race, you might have a beer.
Right.
Because it just wasn't good to drink a lot of alcohol. So anyhow, doing that, the friendship builds. And you could see how they relax and loosen up a little bit more and more. You could ask them more about how this industry works.
Right. And kind of get that tribal knowledge passed on to you.
That's a great word.
Right. And that way you can start to figure out, like you said, all right, now I understand their thought process. I understand what's important to them, which is I mean, that's great salespeople. That's what it really is. What does the customer need and how can I solve that need? Um, I, I have to say, I've been in this industry well over 20 years. I don't think I've ever had one customer ask me to drop stuff off at their house. That's pretty remarkable. I mean, that's a sign of trust that I think you probably recognize right away. Hey, I have an opportunity to build on this and grow this.
Well, and I don't want to jump forward, but when we were feeling what could we be different than other companies, we realized that having locations as permanent locations of warehouses, this had opportunity, but more would be that if I was trying to later in my career, let's just say fast forward 15 years, when I'm trying to get a line of credit, and they said, what makes you different than Home Depot?
Yeah.
And I said, well, we don't have multiple locations, but all our locations are the job sites. And so what we have is distribution centers, because our kind of customer wants not to go to Home Depot. They want it to the job site. And so we deliver. And so our level of distribution was all the way up to Goleta, all the way out to Bakersfield, all the way down to the Chula Vista, all the way out to Thousand Palms daily. So I set up distribution centers that could do that rounds. Whether we did it or daily, it was set up the opportunity we could.
And that mindset is, it almost seems subtle, but it's very radical in that thinking of these job sites are our distribution centers. And to your point, if people are working, if they're on the job site, they're swinging a hammer, they're pounding nails, they don't want to necessarily have to stop to go somewhere else and go get whatever it is they need.
Correct.
They want to keep producing and have that stuff show up and be there.
And the knowledge that my mind could retain information was when they would say, do you carry this? Do you carry this? I would always say, how fast do you need it? And I'll get it.
Yeah.
I never didn't feel I could get it. But then like I would say, give me 20 minutes to figure it out. And if I didn't find it in 20 minutes, I call them back. I'm still working on it. How much time do I still have? And the fact that I did all of that, they were very impressed that I was part of their team. Now, you have to remember, back then, there wasn't cell phones, none of these things.
That's true.
So you had to wait for the opportunity to be able to get back to them on a landline or on a job phone, which existed back then, but no one could hear it ringing with the noise a lot of time.
So you said that off air as well, 20 minutes was kind of that marker for you of, if I don't have the answer, we are going to be back in communication 20 minutes from now, whether I have it or not, but I'm going to check in with you. Going back to that line of don't gamble on service, that is a huge value add in terms of service, that communication piece. That, to this day, with the way we're all connected with the internet, with cell phones, happens less and less, I feel, than even back then when it was, quite frankly, harder to get a hold of people.
Absolutely.
So how did you go about doing that? How did you, like you said, there's job site phones, but no one could pick it up. How are you staying connected in those first 20 minutes?
So the motto for me was that when somebody got home and I got home, and let's say this isn't a day, then I didn't have to deliver to everybody's house every night. So when I get home and I would say, okay, what's the correct time to have dinner that you can call somebody after dinner? So I thought that was about, let's say 20 of 8.
Okay.
So I would start making the phone calls for everything that people might have wanted me to do during the day, or speculation that what those accounts might need following day.
Yeah.
And so you're networking now in the evenings, and you might be doing that to each person who's comfortable on a time frame. Some are tired by 8 o'clock because they have to review plans. They have more than just talking to me. So you have to, walk comfortably through it, not aggravating them. as you're trying to get more business.
Well, and you really have to meet them where they are, which is something you hear a lot in today's society, right? It doesn't necessarily mean the way it is, but I think what you're talking about as well is some person might want to talk at 7:45 at night, others cannot.
Correct.
You need to figure out the right industry there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Then I had to go to the job site. I might be waiting 30 minutes for him or to be at that point. And women were not foremen at that point,
Right.
where I'm talking about, and now they are, and so on. But there weren't purchasing agents back then. They purchased for themselves. So you might have to wait for the opportunity. And in that time frame, I would go around the project and say, wow, I can tell you're going to be short on this. So I was investigating what their needs were going to be, and they were thanking me. Oh, I would have forgotten that. Oh, I would have forgotten that. Oh, I would have forgotten that.
And again, it goes back to service. I mean, not everyone's doing that these days. A lot of times it's so fast paced that people are taking the orders that are given to them and saying, I need this. And no problem, they can solve that. But they aren't looking for those other opportunities, those missed areas. I mean, I go to the store because I need milk and eggs. And then by the time I get home, like, you know what? I needed, soap as well. And I forgot.
Well said.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, when we talk about service, I always love those tangible examples of, well, what does that mean to not gamble on service? Going to the job sites, connecting with them 20 minutes later in that specific instance, walking around and figuring out, do they need these extra things? Is this part of what they're thinking of right now? If not, then I can be. You mentioned something a couple minutes ago, being a part of their team. That's a mindset as well. I don't know that everybody necessarily thinks that way about their customers, right? It's like, that's my customer. I am on this team. They're on that team, and we're working. We have this transactional relationship. But that mindset of, well, I'm on their team. I'm a part of their success, and their success is going to be my success. Have you always thought that way, or was that something that was work?
I would say that I had multiple friends cycling, and the communication of enjoying people and having conversations with them was always fun. So it just seemed natural for me to do the same thing when you're talking to somebody, to put them at ease. Maybe I wasn't, but I would try to figure out how to put them at ease when I'm trying to do stuff for them, and pre-think from other people that I've already done this task with to now say, this is what he's really going to need, even though he might not know it yet, because he hasn't thought about it. And then he'll be thankful that I thought about it.
Yeah.
And if I fast forward just a little bit, as I grew in the company and the company grew and everything, if I was sitting at a golf game with an owner of the company, there was so many good people trained inside our company because we all were a very solid team. But I would maybe talk to them about how they might be doing their information to their accountants on how, did you ever think about depreciating any of this? And, oh my God, I never thought of that. Well, why isn't my accountant telling me that? And I said, well, I don't know, but hey, if I can ever help you, I'm not going to tell you I'm right, but it's questions you can ask your accountant.
Yeah. And that goes beyond that transactional relationship that you've established. I mean, that goes into the root of their business, beyond just, I could sell you this. And that really, I think, endears the customer to you, and you become a part of their business, a part of their team.
And I would say this was a heavy part of our company when we had one location, maybe with 12 employees, give or take. And when we were sitting around and talking, down to somebody in the warehouse never wanted to stay in the warehouse. They wanted to move up.
Yeah.
So everyone was really learning well because they were enjoying at that time and place, because there's still maybe at that time, there might be a fax machine now where somebody wants to send a list, but they still called and needed now.
Yeah.
Just-in-time inventory.
So we're chopping a little bit on the time.
I'm sorry.
No, absolutely not. That's amazing. I'm enjoying this conversation quite a bit. You are listening to Strong Conversations, watching Strong Conversations, Building the Brand series here with Mike Wootten, formerly of Reno Hardware, now retired. But we're not going to get to the retirement quite yet, because I think right now we have established that you started working there and you were doing just about everything, learning. What was the next step in that process of, okay, you've started working, you're employee number 4, you're getting this education. Did you move into sales after that officially?
Well, when I took ownership of the company, in 1979 to 1980. And Reno wanted to retire and so on. So the level of hiring people, you start off with friends.
Right.
And a lot of friends that I knew from cycling and racing bicycles would work in the company. And at that point, some of them stayed a certain amount of time. And I would say maybe 3 years. And then they say, okay, this isn't for me. And so then I started racing sailboats. So then I started to bring my crew in from racing sailboats. And so I had 6 to 7 of a crew of 10 that were all friends, that maybe some of them were just starting college, that would do part-time work at Reno. Some of them wanted a full-time job. And so there was a group of sailors that were trying to enjoyed sailing. And then you would be talking to them at the yacht club afterwards, maybe from another boat. And they go, hey, I hear you have a business. So you're going out and doing it. You had to network more that way. And then they might tell a friend, no, I have a friend that would be good for. And then you're just building your team. And that's where when you're trying to build the team, you can see in their eyes that they get it. Sometimes you can see that they want to get it because they say, I don't understand, please explain better.
Yeah.
And so you're building the team. And it was easy in the beginning when you're maybe a group of 12 to 16. But then when you got to 3 distribution centers, a group of 70 to 75, it's harder for me to control it to the point that I get to meet everyone all the time.
Yeah.
But I made every effort to do that.
Well, that's where I was going to go too, is because, when we were talking before, you're absolutely right. It's harder the more you grow to have more of those personal relationships with all the employees, but it's not impossible. And I think you did a remarkable job in hearing how you did it. Tell everyone how you tried and succeeded to get to know those employees as you continue to grow year over year.
Well, in my career, when we were really sailing a lot of weekends, what I would do is I would rent, with a couple of other friends, a 70-foot sailboat. And so I would invite the employees to come sailing on the boat. And then eventually I invited customers to come on the boat. So then what happened is the customers really enjoyed sailing to Catalina, spending the night over at Catalina, going to dinner, and something they never thought about doing.
Right.
So as that kind of prevailed and so on, then we would use that opportunity to say, okay, so I learned that, well, maybe I'm going to rent a couple of homes out in the desert, and I'm going to take the employees and we're going to go on a Friday, we'll barbecue, play golf, Saturday and Sunday morning, everyone can go home and just relax and talk. And you just built the core, and everyone was enjoying themselves. And you did maybe spend a little bit of money on an entertainment, but it was really to see who wanted to be a player and who didn't.
Yeah. I mean, and what you're talking about to me is building a culture and creating that culture, and then, growing it and having like, if you're an employee and the owner of the company is saying, come on out, we're going to go do this, we're going to go have some fun this weekend. That's pretty incredible. Like to have that level of access to, the boss, quote unquote. Not everyone does that. And I think that probably led to a lot of long-term employees sticking around, right?
Absolutely. And when you're doing that, you have to not be overbearing on your goal. You have to do it very subtle so that everyone's still having fun.
Yeah.
Not that and because even though you're relaxing, you're having fun, everyone's level of enjoyment might be to have a few more drinks than somebody else. So you just have to make sure you're always kind of in control, not that you might be checking yourself on making sure they're having fun, and maybe they're having a little too much. So you're trying to guide them. Hey, might be a time to cut it off.
Yeah.
And so you want to be respectful at all levels of the employees. And we would bring out our warehouse people. We would do all of it. And as the level of the warehouse nationalities changed a little bit, it became the opportunity to talk to them about being bilingual, and now they can go into our sales force too, because the trades were changing.
I mean, again, kind of taking that relationship in this case from employee to employer beyond that quote unquote transactional relationship and understanding them on a deeper level and understanding where they want to go with their career and helping them and supporting them and looking for those opportunities. That is going to breed a culture of loyalty and respect and everything else. So I commend you for doing that. Another thing, I'm going to skip a little bit off the timeline and just talk about some of the service stuff again, because I'm big on this. We were talking about this right before we went live here and previously on a phone call. The product knowledge, the industry knowledge, the knowledge that you and your employees had walking onto a job site, it's pretty much second to none, I would say. You spent a lot of time making sure you understood not only what the customer's needs are, but the solutions that you have available to them. Talk me through that problem. What did your prep work look like to walk onto a job site so that you can almost every time have the answer for them right then?
So this is before computers were starting to. I didn't read books for fun. I read catalogs to memorize product and then know where the future of product was going. So you kind of learn that ICBO numbers were changing. What's going to be the new product? What different nail is going to be important? Oh, we're going away from bolt nails. Now we're going to collated nails. Okay, what company do we represent, or who are we going to represent? What has the product quality that we want to be with, so frustrations aren't on the job? So we constantly looked at product lines that would make the customers and their employees easily comfortable that it wouldn't break on them.
Yeah.
No one needs a tool out there to break. No one needs the plastic on the collated nails when they drop on the ground to shatter and break. So we made sure that we did all our own testing, everything. And so when we carried tool lines, we only carried 3 because we didn't want to have 9. We wanted to have what we felt was the best for the concrete contractor to the framer. And we really weren't into finish. Those were our 2 trades we were in.
You know, our mutual friend, Nate Johnson.
Sure.
He used the phrase to describe you: extreme ownership. And in talking to you, you had mentioned something to the effect of, we paid attention to everything, which I think qualifies as extreme ownership. How are you able to do that? Because we've covered a lot of ground here today, from understanding what the customer needs, anticipating what they're going to need the next day, going out to the job site and making sure that the grocery list is completely full, having the knowledge, making sure if you don't have the answer that you're checking in with them, knowing when to call them. I mean, a lot of stuff that I would say is a lost art, or just is not an art that a lot of people play in, regardless of generation and era. How are you able to maintain, oh, by the way, also checking in with my employees, making sure that they're engaged, making sure that they're set up for success and are going to stay here for generations and generations? How are you able to do all that? Like, that seemed like an impossible task.
Well, remember I told you earlier that we did certain kind of things that are fun on weekends, because we never opened Saturday and Sundays, to the pain and anguish of multiple customers, because we needed to rest.
Yeah.
Because, then when we started opening at 6 o'clock in the morning, then everyone has to get up at 4:30 or 5. Not everyone, but you finally need to relax. And multiple people enjoyed that they had the weekend to do it. But for myself, I enjoyed the task. So there used to be a crazy newspaper called the National Enquirer. And I always loved their slogan, "Inquisitive minds want to know." So my mind just always wanted to know more and more and more. So I didn't find that taxing. I found that enjoyable to figure out the key to success, the needle in the haystack to make everything better. So I was always doing, well, this move is going to do this, but if that doesn't work, I have to have this move and this move. And it might even be that I'm talking about this with a customer that I'm not hitting the relationship yet. So then I said, okay, this one's going to take me 3 or 4 times. Now, how am I going to change my approach time 4? And usually what happened, I found out that I showed up by time 4 with no success. They said, well, you really care.
Yeah. You're here.
You're here. I'm going to give you a chance.
Yeah.
So doing all of this was a challenge, and my competitive nature of trying to make an Olympic team, trying to race boats that was totally fun and winning races and doing it with a lot of our crew that was employees, you had another octave of success besides just getting an order, which then became important too.
I don't know that I don't know that there's a singular for this, but well, let me back up. When you came into the industry, when you're employee number 4, Reno brings you in and says, the plan is for you to take over. So from day one, when you accept the role, you know at some point, this is going to be my couple.
Correct.
Now that happens in the late 70s, early 80s, right? When
Correct.
the transition happens.
Correct.
Were you nervous? Were you scared? Knowing that you were gearing up to do that, was there any sort of trepidation about how do I keep the legacy going? How do I enhance it? Do we change the name of the company? I mean, are all those things boiling in your head, or what does that look like?
Well, you finally come to a point of, as the company was growing, the leadership was working on the ideas and everything. Now it became important to have a bank relationship.
Yeah.
And so back then we were in a industrial complex where a gentleman by the name of Bill Rullo was with Citizens Bank. And he would come by and shake my hand and say, wow, you've now had this one industrial unit. Now you've taken over another one. Now you're taking over a third. You're growing very well. So I had a line of credit with Security Pacific Bank for $100,000. When the recession hit in, I'm just going to remember, I think, 1980, they immediately shut down the line of credit. And they said, we really don't like the customers you sell to, and because they're not general contractors, they're subcontractors.
Right.
And I said, but to have this line of credit, you made me put a $100,000 CD. So what is your liability here? You have the money there already for this. So that's when I went to Citizens Bank, and said, Bill Rullo, I need this. Well, at that point, I needed to make a tax payment from the profit. In all the years that Reno existed, we never had a negative year. We were always profitable. But I was so busy doing other things that I didn't know that this was going to do. So the accountant says, you need this money to do this. Well, I didn't have it. It was all in receivables and purchasing. And so I went to him and I said, I need $75,000 for a week. And back then, from just him coming in all that time, he gave me the $75,000 and I gave it back to him. And then we opened the line of credit there.
Okay. That's incredible. We're going to jump forward again on the timeline.
Okay.
A little bit. So there comes a time in your career where you're ready to move on and move away from Reno Hardware. You take me through the process of it's time to go on to a different adventure.
Well, again, I had multiple employees that are 25, 27, 29 years, but none of them really wanted to take the position I had. And so I had a gentleman by the name of Daniel Gainey, who was helped from day one create our software programs, everything that happened inside our company. So we were bookends building it, but he wasn't in sales. He wasn't in that level, but he gave us the opportunity to build really, really good to the minute Reno was sold of software programs to do very well for our kind of customer. But about 6 years ago, I kind of realized that when I kind of would go out to dinner and meet different ones of the employees saying, well, what do you want to do? What are you thinking your next 3 years would be? Never 5, 3. Well, this is really tough. I don't know if I can do it forever. This is really tough. And they might have been with a company 12 years.
Yeah.
But the industry was changing. It was not as easy. It never was easy, but it was more difficult. The customer was wanting more level of information in the level of quoting, not just the product,
Right.
but it's just changing. So I could kind of feel that I could see the timeline that our opportunity to move forward. Now, I brought my children, my daughter's husband, who's very successful now, both of my son and him in the new company they're working for, they're very successful. But my daughter now has 3 children, so I knew what she did, she's no longer want to do in the company. Every time she would try to hire people to do her job, it wasn't as easy. And we're always being called by 4 or 5 very large companies. What are you thinking about? What are you thinking about? What are you thinking about? Hey, we really want to get your company. So I analyzed it more, thought about it in making everything as far as, not that the books weren't perfect, but they always could be made more for a sale perfect.
Right.
You want to do your inventory levels different. You want to have everything kind of much more that no one looks and says that there's a lot of dead inventory, dead this, dead that. And so I knew that the thought process to talk. And so when a large company reached out to me, I said to my wife, Missy, I said, maybe we should talk this time. And then they were shell-shocked that I was willing to listen. So I wanted to see the opportunity. But all along, there was multiple companies that came in and they were never the right fit.
Right.
They would not been good for our employees. And when we started negotiating and having a marriage, this company understood that I wanted everybody to be able to go. I wanted everyone to have the income that they're making, and that they didn't want to close down any distribution centers. So that's kind of then made me say, okay, we're going to go to step 2 and step 3. And that took a 1.75 years of due diligence.
Well, I mean, going back to the idea of extreme ownership and paying attention to everything, even as you are getting ready to no longer be the owner, you are taking that full responsibility on. And I know that everyone that worked for you is probably very thankful for that.
I talked to them and everything that, and it's an era of a successful, organically grown company. We didn't buy anybody. Yeah. We grew that way from, let's just say, $500,000 to $65 million, all on organic growth, and everyone felt they were part of it.
Yeah.
So it's in a way they could kind of really miss it. I really miss it. I really miss it. But they realize that they're all need the opportunity in a much bigger company. They might want to move, or people wanted to move, then and that company gives the opportunity for them to move. Maybe they want to move to Idaho. The company has locations there, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Well, I mean, it's incredible to, like you said, the organic growth, going from employee 4 to over 70 employees, going from $500,000 of revenue to 60 plus million. I mean, what a journey, an incredible journey. Like you said, not purchasing or anything, just organic growth through service, through extreme ownership, through having a wonderful culture with the company. Congratulations to you and everybody involved with that. I do have one last question, and it may be the most important question. We were talking a little bit about movies before we went live here. So you can answer one or both. What movie best describes your career? And or they come to you tomorrow and say, we're making a movie about you. You get to pick who the actor is that plays you. Who is it?
Well, the movie is probably something that is not going to even be on your radar, but it was a movie that I'm looking at the date here, and I think it was 1992, which I didn't write down. And it's a sailing movie called Wind. And the movie has, if I remember correctly, I'm going to look at my note, Matthew Modine and Jennifer Grey in it as sailors. But the key story, and I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the longest winning sailing trophy called the America's Cup.
Yes.
Okay. So the movie's based on the New York Yacht Club and very rich members of the club wanting to do the challenge. And they're holding the cup. This has been held for over 200 years that the New York Yacht Club held the cup and so on. And so what happens is they lose, and the main founder donation person kind of gives up. So the skipper of it decides to take a rogue team of that, finds a rogue designer that his girlfriend, Jennifer Grey, is now working for because she's really smart and everything. And they build a wonderful team to go win the America's Cup back trophy.
I think that is very appropriate given your love of sailing, building that team and everything that goes with it. Actually, Matthew Modine wouldn't be a bad actor to play it either.
Yeah. And then the only other, and I thought about that a lot, and the person that I've always kind of liked being in Bull Durham and other movies is Kevin Costner, just because I think I like the way he handled Bull Durham and doing meat in that movie.
There you go. Well, the Kevin Costner, the Bull Durham of our industry, Mike Wootten, thank you very much for joining us here on Strong Conversations, and thank you all for joining us. Stay tuned for more conversations soon.